Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Bad Paramahansa, Parijaka Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parijaka Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktabrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All right. Okay, this book I don't need. Do you want to use the Mani Bandhani? Because you have your little device, right? Yeah. You have your device? Okay. And we don't have a verse, we actually have prose, so I'll chant it myself. Narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam Tato Jai Mudiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. Been a while. I'm out of practice. On this 8th day of November, 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 5, the Creative Impetus, Chapter 7, the Activities of King Bharat. Text number 5. I'll chant it myself. Ije cha bhagavantam yagya kraturupam kratubir uchavachai Shraddhaya Ritagni Hotra Darsha Purnamasa Chaturmasya Pashusomanam and Pakati Vikatibir Anushavanam Chatur Hotra Vidina. Translation. With great faith, King Bharat performed various kinds of sacrifice. He performed the sacrifices known as Agnihotra, Darsha, Purnamasa, Chaturmasya, Pashu Yagya, wherein a horse is sacrificed, and Soma Yagya, wherein a kind of beverage is offered. Sometimes these sacrifices were performed completely, and sometimes partially. In any case, in all the sacrifices, the regulations of Chatuhotra were strictly followed. In this way, Bharata Maharaj worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One note for those who are interested. I think this Darsha Purnamasa is one sacrifice. It's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. That be that as it may. Purport. Animals like horses and cows were offered in sacrifice to test the proper execution of the sacrifice. Otherwise, there was no purpose in killing the animal. Actually, the animal was offered in the sacrificial fire to get a rejuvenated life. Generally, an old animal was sacrificed in the fire, and it would come out again in a youthful body. Some of the rituals, however, did not require animal sacrifice. In the present age, animal sacrifices are forbidden, as stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ashramedam gavalam bham sannyasam palapaitrikam devarena sutotpattim kalau pancha vivarjayet. In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. The offering of a horse in sacrifice, the offering of a cow in sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas, the offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his brother's wife. C.C. Adi 17-164. Such sacrifices are impossible in this age due to the scarcity of expert Brahmins or Ritvija who are able to take the responsibility. Ritvija are the priests. In the absence of these, the Sankirtan Yagya is recommended. Yagyai Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Hisumera Saha, Bhagavatam 11.532. After all, sacrifices are executed to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yagyarta karma. Such activities should be carried out for the Supreme Lord's pleasure. In this age of Kali, the Supreme Lord in his incarnation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should be worshipped with his associates by performance of Sankirtan Yagya, the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna Mantra. This process is accepted by intelligent men. Yagyai Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Hisumedasa. The word Sumedasa refers to intelligent men who possess very good brain substance. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So in this chapter we're learning about the activities of King Bharat. Give me a second here. And at a certain point he will retire. As we know, we may be familiar with his pastime of meditation, bhakti meditation, and how he became attracted to a deer. That's going to be described in great detail. But here it's describing his responsible execution of the duties of a king, of an emperor. And one of those responsibilities, performing various kinds of sacrifice for the pleasure of the Lord. There's a verse in the 6th canto, I forget where, maybe 8th canto, describing how King Bharat left his home even when he was very young, and his beloved wife and children and all the responsibilities, just as you leave stool after passing it, and took shelter of Uttama Shloka. And I was always under the impression that he was leaving very young, but it describes, I was reading up these verses, how he ruled this kingdom, the world, for 10,000 times 1,000 years. That's 1,000,000, that's 10 million years. And yet still he left when he was youthful, so you can imagine the kind of lifespan they're having at this point. That's what it said, 10,000 times 1,000. In any case, the point here is that these sacrifices are important in any civilized human society. The sacrifices are meant to please the Lord and for purification. We're reading in the evening class, which we'll have tonight, begin again, the different modes of nature. We're in chapter 17. And we find that sacrifices and charity and tapasya, different varieties of austerities, can be done in different modes of nature. The purpose of the sacrifice, when done in the mode of goodness for the pleasure of the Lord, is for purification of those who are performing the sacrifice and also of society in general. Because the danger is that the danger is always that society will become infected with the modes of passion and ignorance, because not everybody is a Brahmin. You have the 4 orders, you have the Shudras, you even have some outcasts, and there's a great tendency that they can be very much influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. So for the healthy running of society, everyone has to see that the leaders are not simply exploiters, that they're not simply demons and simply leading in name only and actually exploiting the lower classes. Then all society goes to hell. This is why Krishna was so anxious that Yudhishthira be enthroned, because he's very concerned that Dharma be practiced, actual genuine Dharma be practiced in society. Otherwise it's just animalistic society. That famous verse from the Hitopadesh, Ahara nidra bhayamaitanangsha samanyametat pashapi naranam. Dharma hitesham adhiko vishesho dharme nahina pashapi samana. That don't forget, we've all come through all these animals to come to this human form of life. We don't know how many times. So there's a certain animalistic nature that we have. It's deeply ingrained. And so we share with the animals these 4 basic principles: eating, sleeping, mating, defending, fearing and defending go together. And the distinguishing quality in human life is Dharma, genuine Dharma. Not religiosity, not Kudharma, but actually real Dharma. Otherwise, human society is nothing but animal life, animalistic life. There's this phrase we learned, these little phrases that Prabhupada would teach us. Dvipara pashu means two-legged animals, human beings. You know, 2 of the legs have become hands, but we've come from all these lower animals. And so we can easily act like that and revert to that we can then lose our human form of life and go down in the species like that. So Krishna, being the father of all, he never forgets us. We forget him, but he never forgets us. He's always there as the super soul, knowing what's going on, trying to give us good guidance. And sometimes, as he famously explains in the Bhagavad Gita, yada yada hi dharmasa glani bhavati bharata, when there are these discrepancies in dharma, in society, I manifest myself, I advent, I descend, for the purpose of reinstituting dharma, protecting the devotees, annihilating the miscreants. But it's up to the human beings to sustain that. Krishna only comes once in a long, long time, over 8 billion years, that he actually appears on earth. So, but he leaves his Bhagavad Gita and other instructions. He has his representatives here. So we have every opportunity to take advantage of those instructions and become purified and return back to Godhead. That's the whole program for the human beings. So Bharat was obviously one of the great representatives of the Lord, the son of Lord Rishabhdev, the eldest son. And he is performing his duties as the emperor, as the king, very responsibly. He didn't just shine it on. He was getting involved, just like we've heard other kings in the fourth canto, Prithu, and Dhruva also took on that role, even though he didn't want it. Finally, he said, "Svaman kotatos nivedam niyache." He started out wanting this kingdom, right? But then he was so purified by the instructions of Narada, and he was chanting the holy name. He was performing little deity worship, meditating on the Lord, and he gave up. But he wanted it. It was his position to be the king, so he took on that role for over 30,000 years. But unless you have the Rajarshis ruling, Rajarshi is a combination of these two words. Go ahead, please. Raja and Rishi. Rishi here means learned devotee, right? And Raja means the king. So in the body of one person needs to be evident these two qualities of being, having that charisma, that ability, and that nature of a ruler, but also someone who's learned in the Shastra, who is willing to take the advice of the Brahmins, who are purely in the mode of goodness and they live simply, so they can't be bought off, right? The problem today is that all the intellectuals get bought off by the politicians. It's corrupt. And to lead this society for the benefit of everyone in it. That's the whole idea. And Prabhupada stresses again and again, I was reading some of the purports, how one of the main responsibilities of the king or leader is to see that everyone is engaged according to their propensity in gainful employment. That nobody is slackening, is all this unemployment, or that you have Shudras, genuine Shudras acting as Brahmins, That Brahmins, of course, it's all by quality and activity, guna and karma, not just by birth. This is another way that corruption enters in. But you can imagine what a responsibility that is, is to make sure that everyone is properly engaged. And then everyone can be satisfied. Now, right at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, it explains how the structure of an ashram has meaning and works when Krishna is in the center. That's why we have, I don't know if you know this, but we have a whole department, it's been going on for years, it used to be called the Daivi Varnashram, but then they figured out it should be Daiva Varnashram. And I think it's Bhakti Raghava Swami who's been doing that. He even studied in college to learn how to manage farms and things like that. And there were some places where they're really showing it. Like I think there's a place in Indonesia, they have a nice farm where they try to have the different castes, the different ashrams and varnas manifest. And of course, cow protection is central. But the whole idea is that, as explained by Sutta Goswami at the beginning of Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter, Atak Pumbir Dvija Shrestha Varnashama Vibhagasha Swanasitasya Dharmasya Sangsidhir Haritoshanam. The last line means the perfection of this varna and ashram is when the center is Krishna and the purpose is pleasing the Lord, Haritoshanam. Otherwise, it's corrupt, So now you can see, even by our own little attempts, we don't have much of our ashram going here, but people join from different with different skills and different propensities, obviously different intelligence, and everyone's engaged in devotional service. And I was fortunate enough to get a service that was, suitable to my psychophysical nature. I'm actually very my specialty is fault finding. And so, how am I going to use that in Krishna consciousness? Okay, you become a proofreader. You find the mistakes, you see. Okay. So I'm still doing that, somehow dovetailing my propensity. So, but the idea is that whatever you're engaged in, if you're seeing how it's pleasing to Krishna, you're engaging in the activities that we all do, the sadhana bhakti, whether you're Brahman or a Shudra or a Chandal, you're meant to chant Hare Krishna. That's the central sacrifices we'll get to in a minute. But if you're actually pleasing Krishna, you're doing it authorizedly, then whatever you then do for your service, whether it's sweeping or on the altar or distributing books, cooking, whatever it may be, that'll be satisfying to you because it's connected to Krishna. But if it's not, then the only thing will satisfy if you get enough money. Then it devolves to that. And there's never enough. Or you get a certain amount of money, which is fine now, but then the next day inflation happens and it doesn't buy what you need. And then there's, of course, the guys at the top who are employing you. They don't care about you. They care about your labor. And so if, there's a lot of unemployed people, they can get it cheaper, they'll just fire you and get, The whole thing becomes corrupted when Krishna's not in the center, whether it's Varnashram or what we have now. So that is a very important point, which you can experience ourselves. I remember when I was in Brooklyn, before, I did proofreading and things, but that was part of the day, and then I did other things. So I came around, my turn was washing pots, We all took our turn. I said, okay. There was even this fellow who was a cripple. He would sit, he couldn't walk. And he was doing his pots, It was very, very exemplary, surrendering to that. So I remember, okay, chant Hare Krishna while you're doing pots, it's not the end of the world. You're doing it for Krishna, And I remember in Miami, remember the BBT, their job was on Sundays to do the pots. We had a little crew, maybe 4 or 5 guys, and we had a few ladies. The ladies didn't have to do it. So, unless you're a pure devotee, after a big Sunday feast and the kirtan and everything, you're not spontaneously attracted to do the pots. You more or less want to take rest and the big feast you had, But that was our duty, come 8:30 or whenever it was. So me and Dineshwar and a couple other guys, I think probably Gorilla, we went down there. And it was like four or 5 of us. So what are we going to do? Let's have a kirtan, So we're banging the pots, trying to bang in time, like that. So we'd have this kirtan. I don't know if I was leading, someone else was leading. And by the end of that hour-long yajna of doing the pots, we were blissed out, because you're remaining transcendental doing that activity. And then the idea that it's the sacrifice that makes it even more blissful. I said, here we are, we did this because no one else wants to do, really, and then we did it for Krishna. So this is I don't want to say magic, but this is the science of Krishna consciousness, is that because Krishna is in the center, and because we're practicing sadhana, and our higher purpose is for purification, not to get some measly salary, then everything we do, when we do it with consciousness, the whole thing is to pay attention, whether you're sweeping the floor or you're fixing the books or dressing the deities. Attention is the gold standard that we have to offer to Krishna. And that's what they want out there, right? What is Facebook selling? Your attention. They're getting your attention by giving their Facebook thing. But then they find out what your preferences are, because they keep track where you go, what sites you see, what you type, what you buy. And then they sell that information to others who are trying to sell you something. So the whole thing is that what you pay attention for, what you want. And Krishna consciousness is meant to draw. We're meant to draw our attention away from Maya and put it on Krishna. And at first, you have to do it by force. You have to get up. You have to come. You have to look, see the deities, chant Hare Krishna. The mind may be rebelling. Certainly, get up at 3:30 or whatever it is. I mean, after a while, you get spontaneously attracted, but it takes a while. The hardest part is getting up when you first come to the temple. But you've come to the temple. Okay, I mean, I have to do this. So your intelligence wins over the mind and the inertia, and you get up and you take that shower and you're down there, and then you're happy that you did it, right? The part of you is saying, yeah, I can do this. This is not impossible. I'm doing it. I'm feeling the benefit. So there's these two parts now. There's the part where your actual soul is appreciating, and your purified mind and intelligence are appreciating. But there's all the habits that we've developed over millions of lives in this life, which are also dragging, and the mode of ignorance may affect us at one point, and they'll put it off. So there's a struggle. This is called sadhana. This is the practice, and the basic sadhana, or the basic principle underlying all the sadhanas, is to be fully attentive. Be here now. I'm not going to. That was a slogan from long ago, and it's a good slogan today, and it'll always be. It perfectly describes what is it called? Mindfulness, attentiveness, whatever you want to call it. And the more that you bring your attention to whatever you happen to be doing in Krishna consciousness, whether it's chanting, distributing books, sweeping up, it doesn't matter. The more benefit you get, and the quicker you'll see Krishna in that service. You'll see how this connects you to Krishna, and you'll remember Krishna. So, back to our yajnas. Now, of course, generally speaking, you'll find a lot of times when the verse deals with sacrifice, Prabhupada eventually brings it around to the Sankirtan Yajna. You'll see if you look in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, Prabhupada cites this verse, Yagyartart kamanonyata lokoyam karma bandhana. Work has to be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, otherwise it binds one to this material world and the modes of nature. It's a very simple principle. So how to organize one's life so that one is sacrificing for Vishnu at every moment. And you're getting free of your previous karma, you're not incurring any new karma, and you're becoming purified. But your heart's becoming purified. That's the art and science of Bhakti Yoga. So here, after Prabhupada describes something about how these animal sacrifices, it's a little startling, when you come to Krishna consciousness, and of course the first thing you learn probably before joining is that they're vegetarians, right? They're into cookies. You know that, and you find out how for many reasons. Most, the cow, we would never kill the cow, And then you find out, what is this? This Ashvamedha? Ashvamedha means a horse sacrifice. 100 Ashvamedas, 100 horses are killed? What's going on here? So Prabhupada often explains that these animals weren't killed, their body was renewed. In other words, you take an old animal, a horse or a cow even, and the mantras are chanted perfectly. Now, I learned from my days working with Gopi Puranadana Prabhu, who really was a very pukka Sanskrit scholar and wonderful devotee, that these different classes of priests. It mentions the Chatuhotra. These are four different kinds of priests. When you get into the different sacrifices and the different Vedas, there's a lot of technicalities that we don't have to know about. And part of it is that there's different kinds of priests. Well, one is that you have the priests who are actually chanting the mantras. Then you have another set who are listening to them and refereeing. And if they mispronounce something, they stop and they correct them. And if they keep mispronouncing, you're fired. And they put someone else in there. Because it's very important to pronounce these mantras exceptionally precisely. Now, what would happen to us if we had to do that? Many of us are still working on Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. What to speak of our Gita class, and all these other things. So the point is that Prabhupada ends this whole purport, So here, the main quote: "Such sacrifices are impossible in this age due to the scarcity of expert Brahmins or Ritvaja. Ritvaja are other kind of priests who they do all kinds of things. In the absence, the Sankirtan Yajna is recommended." Now, Prabhupada knew that from the Shastra. that it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean that you have to do it in India where people can speak Sanskrit. It's meant for the whole world. Lord Chaitanya predicted that my name will be chanted in every village and town in the whole world. And in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada would often quote this verse. This is worth memorizing. This one, it's Shukadev, one of his prayers before he starts reciting the Bhagavatam in the second canto. The Bhagavatam really begins again in the beginning of the second canto. Anyway, you can look. And so, Kirata Hunanda Pulinda Pulkasha Abir Shumba Javanaka Shariya Yenye Chapapa Yadapashrayashaya Shunyanti Tasmai Prabhavishnave Namaha. So he's offering a basin to Vishnu. We call him Prabhavishnave, the powerful Vishnu. So he's listing various outcasts. In other words, those who are outside of the Vedic culture. I forget what all they are. All the Kirata, Hunanda. The Hunandas, I think the Hun are the Huns. I think they're Germans, right? Hungary, up there, you know. And then Kasha. Kasha is definitely the Chinese and the whole thing, you know. They're outside of India. And they're considered very primitive. But this verse says that this list he gives, plus others. I'm going to put in the book. Abhira, Shumba, Yavana, Kashadiya. Adiya means etc. 1966 residents of Lower East Side. You know, I can make a Sanskrit name for that. So they and others can be purified. Shuddyanti means purified. Shuddyanti tasmai prabhavishnave kiratuhun punan abir yavana kashadi yen ye cha papa yadapashriyashya. These and other sinful persons, the whole idea is they're steeped in sin. Yadapashriyashya, when you take shelter of one who has taken shelter of Vishnu. In other words, if you meet a representative of Vishnu who's generally representing him and willing to teach the science of Bhakti, and you take shelter, surrender, then anybody can be purified. And this was, now, we have the perfect example of Jagai Madai. Nityananda was acting as a representative of Lord Chaitanya, because he's Vishnu Tattva, but he thought of himself as that. I'm just a servant of Lord Chaitanya. And you know the story, how he was deputed by Lord Chaitanya, go out to everybody in Navadvip. Now these people are not, Kirata Hunanda Pulinda Pukasha. These are people born and raised in India, and Navadvip was their center of learning. So they knew who Krishna was and everything. But the point is that he was simply giving them this instruction. What does it say? Bolo Krishna, Bojo Krishna, Kodo Krishna, Shika. Just chant Sri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions, and to others them impart. Now that last part he especially gave to his followers. But basically those three: chant Sri Krishna's name, worship him, and follow his instructions. So this can be given to anyone. It is given to us. What do the books have? They have the same instruction, So this is our, this makes it possible for us to practice Krishna consciousness, because we don't have to know, or we don't have to care about all of these technicalities of the different sacrifices. These sacrifices are generally performed for propitiating the gods, or even Vishnu, but for the purpose of society, prospering and remaining pure. It's not simply for the purpose of going back to Godhead. And as soon as you have this some material purpose for the sacrifice or for whatever you're chanting, then all these rules and regulations come in. Have to chant it precisely, or you may get an opposite result, or no result. And it has to be done at the time, the place, and just when the sacrifice happens, the stars. Is it an auspicious time to perform? Do we ever ask that? Is it an auspicious time to chant Hare Krishna? Never. It's always auspicious. It makes everything else auspicious. So for this age, we've been given this concession. And we have a great advantage, which I'll explain in a minute, over those of previous ages. So this verse here, famous verse, Yagya Sankana Praya Janti Sumedasa, this is in the 11th canto, as described here, when one of the 9 Yogendras, I always forget which one, is answering a question from Maharaj Nimi about the different avatars as they came, and which one is especially the avatar for Kali Yuga. So this is this famous verse. Krishna Varnam, Tvisha Krishnam, Sango Pangastra Parshadam, Yagyar Sankatana Praya Yajantihi Sumedasa. That the Yuga avatar for this age is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, normally it's said that Krishna doesn't come in the Kali Yuga, you know. But the point, he doesn't come overtly, but he comes in a hidden incarnation. That's why Lord Chaitanya wasn't immediately recognized. Well, some people did, you know, that he was God. But generally speaking, he wasn't understood to be God. But he showed that he was, and that the idea is that those who are intelligent in this age, who are Sumedasa, they were worshipping chiefly by the process of Sankirtan. That means there's also scope for deity worship and other kinds of worship, but the chief worship is the Sankirtan Yajna. And now why is it so suited for this age? Well, because we're so fallen, we're so helpless, as it's described that this age, Kaling Sabaji Antyaya Guna Gyasara Bhagana. No, that comes later. That in the 12th canto, there's a list of all of the disqualifications of this age. You know, people, they don't live very long. They're one problem we always focus on. The men think that they're going to be attracted by wearing long hair. Well, that was a fad in the 60s. When he came, he said, "Oh, this is confirming the 12th canto," because in those days everyone's wearing long hair. Now, different, you know. But that's not so important. But you know, mercy is declining. I mean, that's a critical factor. If you have any society that's trying to, you know, be a society, there has to be some feeling of empathy for others. It can't be that everybody else is exploiting everyone else, all against all. You know, it becomes hell on earth, which is what we're seeing. So that mercy is declining, the age is declining, the health, the wealth, even the longevity and the height. People are getting shorter, and you know, all these things are going on. So generally speaking, this age is an ocean of faults. Those who know this verse. Kalir doshi nide rajan asti eko mahan guna kirtanadeva krishnasya mukta sangam param vrajet. So this age of Kali is an ocean of faults. This is one of the lines in the Bhagavatam that we've all realized. We have all vigyan. Don't you think, Daniel? It's an ocean of faults. Okay. And so, so this is Shukadev speaking to the king, Rajan, but there's one very special quality, Asti Eko Mahan Gunad, which is? What is it? Get liberated, go back to God, yeah. Kirtanadeva Krishna. It has to be Kirtan of Krishna, not Kali Krishna. Kali Kirtan. But they have that in, they picked it up from the devotees, Kali's name. No offense against Kali, but that's not what we do here. So, Kirtanadeva Krishna Mukta Sangha Paramajam. Notice the word Sangha again, that keeps coming up. Mukta Sangha means you get liberated from all your material attachments. You see? And all temptations to have bad association. The attachment comes from association. Sangha sanjayate kama. This line is quoted often from the Gita to indicate that as you associate, so your attachments will become. Every parent knows that. Who are you hanging out with? Where'd you pick up that idea? I told you not to hang out with Bobby. You know that he smokes marijuana and, you know, whatever. But it's an obvious principle. So, but in Krishna consciousness, we can direct our Sangha properly, and not just, you know, according to whim or some material principle, but prasangamandara pasham, first of all, to direct it toward the sadhus. That's our key. That's the doorway to learning the science and to practice it. Without finding someone who you can trust and who you can serve and worship, then you're adrift. Until Prabhupada came, there was no way. You know, he was that person, and his worthy representatives. So, Sangha Sanjayate Kama. So in this age, because we're so unqualified, we can chant with complete desperation. If you're living 100,000 years, as in the Satya Yuga, and everyone is a Brahman, then the urgency of chanting Krishna and feeling help, you don't feel so helpless. You see what I'm saying? That's why the heavenly planets is not a better place than this. This is better. This earth planet is much better for practicing Krishna consciousness. Because in the heavenly planets, you can get intoxicated with the wealth and all the apsaras and everything like that. And we see in the Bhagavatam, Indra. So, what to speak of wanting to go there? When you aspire and you perform these other sacrifices, that's the idea, to improve your material position. In this age, those who are intelligent give up trying to improve their material position and try to improve their spiritual position by practicing Sankirtan. And Prabhupada knew that the key was getting them to chant in whatever condition they are. And he took that risk. We've been hearing, over the last few days, coming to America. And what did he do? Beat the little drum, right, and chant for 3 hours in Tompkins Square Park. Had a little crew. What you don't hear when you hear those nice lectures, there's a special taste. I like those 66 lectures in New York. You don't hear the hour kirtan before and the hour kirtan after. He would do kirtan, maybe not an hour after, but he'd do kirtan before, substantial, hour long. And then, everyone would get absorbed. And then he would have the lecture. They would be most receptive at that point. And after another kirtan, maybe for 10, 15 minutes, and then prasadam. That's the basic principle. All you need is a place and a kitchen, and a little Lakshmi to buy the boga, and a little half a drum. And he started with minimal, and it all built up. And the foundation always, as today and will always be, is the holy name, is the chanting of the holy name. Beginning with kirtan, but also supported japa. Japa is very essential also. Lord Chaitanya did both. And he showed both, and he assigned his followers to do that. So that's the Sankirtan the Jagya of this age. And we're enjoined in the 18th chapter about you can't give up Jagya and Dana and Tapa. So where is our three? Well, we know what Jagya is basically Sankirtan and other sacrifices, but that's the basic one. And where is our Dana? Whatever fruits you make from your service is all for the pleasure of the Lord. That's our giving up, attachment to things. Dana means that you take a portion, it's charity. So we don't call it charity, but it's basically being detached from the fruits of your labor and giving them to the Lord. And tapasya, we all know that. Getting up early, taking a shower. It's very difficult. So, but there are many tapasyas, large and small, some very severe. And there we learn from Rishabdev. We just learned how essential that is for human life. Without tapasya in human life, you're sinking down into animal life. We can all chant together. This one we should know. Nayam deho deha bhajan niloke kashtan kamanarate vidbujamye tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam Shuddhed yasma brahma saukyam tvanantam. So much in this one verse. You look at Prabhupada's, I go through in the playlists of, the Bhagavatam lectures, and you come to 551, and like 12 or 15 lectures he gave on that. Wherever he went, he would give that for a month or so. So anyway, what does it mean? Nayam deho. Those who have taken this human form of life, and that includes everyone in this room. Hare Krishna. Nayam deho deha bhajan. Don't struggle very hard. Kashtam, work like a dog, like an ass, to attain what? The happiness that the hogs enjoy. He literally used stool-eating hogs right there in the huge assembly. It's not just his sons, it's everybody. Well, what else can we do? I got rent to pay. No, you have to perform tapasya, and not just any tapasya, tapo divyam. That tapasya, voluntary austerity, that is meant for purification of yourself, of your soul. Tapo divyam putaka, O children. Yena sattvam shuddhed, by which your existence will be purified. And what's the goal of all this? Happiness, pleasure. Yes, the greatest pleasure. Brahma saukyam tvanantam. And by that purification, you'll come to the point, if you do it right, of being more and more progressively able to enjoy transcendental happiness, which doesn't end and which is not limited. The word ananta has two meanings: time and space. It doesn't come to an end. when you're actually experiencing. And it's unlimited. It's completely different from material pleasure, which is very much temporary and very much limited, and produces misery, rebirth, and other things. So that's the choice we all have. And all of these instructions, and ultimately, of course, we'll hear the incredible story of Bharat, how he became affectionate to a deer. Oh, and the descriptions. I was reading ahead, detailed descriptions about how he got completely infatuated with this deer. Remember? You remember reading that? Because he had come to the state of bhava, he's directing it all to Krishna, his love. And then it was all, because of this circumstance, it was all directed toward this deer. I mean, he was more attached than anyone you read about materially. And of course, he took birth as a deer, and eventually, the whole story, he was exalted. But it's an object, a lesson. There's so many lessons in the Bhagavatam, and that is that that it's a razor's edge. You have to be careful where you put your attention. If you allow your attention to become absorbed in material things, even though you're in devotional service, then you can easily divert your attention and become attracted to the opposite sex or anything else. And it will slow you up. Whatever you've done is in the bank. You're not going to lose it permanently, but it's, you can leave the association of devotees. I mean, just a simple final lesson, then I'll stop and maybe have a discussion. And that is that we know these offenses, right? We send them every morning. I assume someone is saying the offenses. And there's so many other offenses. We should study the nectar of devotion. Offenses in deity worship. I didn't say anything. One lady came in. She offered his obeisances to Prabhupada when she entered in, but she had her backside to the deities. Okay, we should avoid that. Be conscious. You can just be angled. There's all kinds of things. You have to be conscious and attentive. So, if you commit the worst offense, offending a devotee, especially a pure devotee, then what's going to happen? Well, you're not going to be hit by a thunderbolt, generally. But your taste for Krishna consciousness will be damaged, if not destroyed. And if you don't have that, what do you have? You can still go through the motions, but if you're not tasting anything by chanting, if you're so uncomfortable that you can't stay in the association of devotees, I've seen it with my own eyes. If you offend someone, it's very hard to then sit, to chant and dance with them. And I mean, serious offense. You know what I mean? So that's, and if you can't associate with devotees, you're at the mercy of Maya. You're seriously, you have no access. You have to try to get it right with that particular devotee, and pray for Krishna to forgive you and come back. There's a way, but it's very difficult. So that's the way Krishna kicks you out. That's the way we were kicked out of the spiritual world. We became offensive. We were a disturbance to the other devotees, and we created a disharmony there. Boom! Here's your place now. And we've been here for a long time. So attentiveness and learn, the science of bhakti, these wonderful accounts we have and lessons in the Bhagavatam. It's just one thing after another. It's all nectar. Yesterday, after the lunch, there was this devotee, Madhuri Pura. Some of you know him. He's actually the son of an old Prabhupada disciple named Prahlada Priya, who used to live here. And I saw him growing up. So he showed up. What are you doing? I knew him from several years ago. We spent some time in Mayapur. He said he had to come here because this is one of the spots, a federal office, where you can apply and get clearance to travel abroad. It's difficult to get, anyway. So he was here for that reason. So he thought he'd drop by. So when I was with him in Mayapur, I was doing what I do. I was teaching him shlokas and things like that. He's a great musician, wonderful drummer. He's in Kirtan. He lives in Laguna Beach now with his wife. And so he reminded me of a verse that I'd forgotten for years. And I said, thank you so much, So I'll just share it with you. And you could just, some of the nectar of this Bhagavatam, it's coming up in the 6th canto, I think, with the story of Chitraketu. So Chitraketu had been worshiping Sankirtan, so he's meditating, and in this prayer, I think it's the end of his prayers to Sankirtan, he chants this, which is prose. but there's part of it that's one of the most poetic, amazing things. It says, Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya Mahanubhavaya Mahavabhuti Pataye Sakala Sapata Padavida Nikada Kamala Kudmalo Balata Chadanada Vindiyukala Padabadameshtin Namaste. You know this one, right? Not yet. What is that? So what it says, Om Namo Bhagavate, this is a standard way of Bhagavate Mahapurushaya. Oh, I offer my obeisance unto the great Lord, He who is so powerful, so many vibhutis. And then he's describing what's happening in the spiritual world there. Sakala Sattva, that means all the devotees in the spiritual. Parivrita, you're surrounded by them. Sakala Sattva, Parivrita, Nikada Kada Kamala Kudmalopa. So with their numerous lotus bud-like hands, you see, they're massaging very gently, almost like pampering, massaging very gently. Upalalata. Namaste. They're massaging his beautiful lotus feet in this spiritual world. Namaste. I offer my obeisance to you. So just that, it's such a wonderful thing. I had forgotten all about this, and then he had revived it. He was chanting it, obviously, and it's we've been given this gift by Srila Prabhupada, his great efforts, of all of these vibrations that we can take shelter of, primarily, of course, the holy name, Hare Krishna, and all of the expansions of the Hare Krishna Mantra, of which the Bhagavatam is one. For instruction, for inspiration, for chastisement, for all kinds of things, for knowledge. It's a great treasure, and we should take shelter, take advantage. And distribute it to others. Try to give that story about Victoria. I had no idea. She's giving Bhagavatam classes now. Krishna. Talking about precocious, my God. What is it, like 4 months of the movement? 2 months. All because you distributed that book. I didn't know about that part about she was part of a group that was coming, that was crying from the violin concert. Wow. It's a classic. That should be. I'm sorry? All right. Any comments, questions?
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we have a local question here. Then we'll. Is that okay, Vijay? Krishna?
Yes, I can wait. Prabhu,
okay.
No problem.
I'm glad. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Bol.
Thank you, Dravida Prabhu. It's just a simple question, and you said that in the 12th canto that they predict that every male is going to have long hair, and they're going to think that's attractive.
Well, it doesn't say every male. It says that will become a fad.
Right.
That, that the people think they're very beautiful with long hair.
So my question is, what about like shikas? Like if you have a very long shika, does that count as very long hair?
There is probably prescribed the shika, which unfortunately I don't follow so closely. But I have some very important acharyas, Bhakti Marg Swami and Radhanath Swami, have more or less taken on this role. So, but the shika should be no bigger than a quarter. Prabhupada said at one time, which is hard to maintain. But it's supposed to be tied up. It can be long when it's loose, but it's tied up. It's not supposed to be hanging down on your shoulders. You know what I'm saying? So that's the idea. And he's got to wash it, so you got to take it and wash it and tie it up again. But there are rules and regulations which definitely don't include it hanging over your neck. So don't get any ideas.
And one more question: what's the significance of the shika?
The significance of the shika?
Yeah.
Well, we were first told that Krishna will pull you up and take you back to Godhead. So you got to have your shika on, and he'll recognize you by your tilak. So make sure you got your tilak on, and especially the tulsi. Tulsi is very important. That it can be recognized, and the Yamadutas won't touch you. You got your tilak, and you got your tulsi, and you got your shika. So you'll be safe. So be careful. Okay, Jeff, and then we'll have Vijay. One more, Vijay.
Yes, I can wait.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for class.
Hare Krishna.
Just if you can explain, in the verse it says, in this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. And one of those acts is the acceptance of the order of sannyasa.
Yeah.
So we're in Kali Yuga, and we have sannyasa.
I thought I was going to get through with that. Yeah, sannyas is forbidden because the idea is no one's qualified, and it can be misused, as it has been misused. even today. And in our line, it had I think Madhavendra Puri was a sannyasi, but that it had become unused until Bhaktisiddhanta for hundreds of years. If you really want to renounce, you go to Vrindavan and take Babaji. And that's why you had Gorkishore wandering around, and for 30 years, and others would do that too. Very austere, But sannyasa is especially good for preaching, because it's your that's the mission. You're Krishna's representative, and you're giving an example for others of renunciation, and you're an example of pure bhakti and fearlessness. It means fearlessness. So that had been corrupted over the years, and so that was this injunction is there. But for the sake of preaching, Bhaktisiddhanta revived it, and it became, of course, in his own group, the Gaudiya Math, and Prabhupada also used it. But it's not for everybody. I mean, you have to really be serious. That preaching has to be a big part of it until you're so ill that you can't, like that. Vijay Prabhu.
I heard that was the Mayavad sannyas. Should not in Kali Yuga.
Oh.
No Mayavad sannyas.
Yeah, because that's how that's one of the reasons how it became corrupted, misused. So yeah, but I mean, was this written especially for the Mayavadis? That's what these five were. Okay, so there's that aspect to it. You're on, Vijay Krishna.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. Prabhu, the quote from the purport is, quote, "This process is accepted by intelligent men," end quote.
Uh-huh.
So, Prabhu, some people, when they see the Hare Krishnas chanting and dancing in their saffron robes and chanting in a very different language, not understandable because it is Sanskrit language, very uncommon. They go far realizing that, these people must be crazy. So my question is, intelligent in what sense?
Well, first of all, I can refer you to a wonderful essay Prabhupada wrote called "Who is Crazy?" If you don't know where to find it, I'll send it to you. I've got it on my iPad, I think, or in my computer. Because Prabhupada was confronted with that. Some of the parents of his devotees were thinking that their children had become crazy, that they had been brainwashed or whatever. And so Prabhupada, the very simple idea. Well, if you think you're something you're not. It's like the classic thing you used to call it lunatic asylum. I don't know if they have them anymore. But some people are walking around, they think they're Christ. That's very common. And then others are Napoleon, or someone famous like that. Well, this person is crazy because obviously, So you're thinking you're something you're not. But that's the basic principle of material life. You're thinking they're the body, right? But that's just as crazy, and it has much worse ramifications because everybody's in the lunatic asylums. So Prabhupada said this world is like a lunatic asylum. So the Sumedasa means that not only do you understand you're not the body, but you understand Krishna is God, and that Lord Chaitanya is also Krishna, and that the easiest process for purification is this Hare Krishna Mantra, and as explained in the Upanishads and like that. So you take up the process. That Sumedasa means that you're intelligent enough to give up your misconceptions, surrender, just like Arjun. Arjun had his own ideas why he shouldn't fight. He was arguing, right? But he gave all that up. And he was realizing, I don't know, I can't solve my problem. So I'm entrusting the whole thing to Krishna. Whatever you say, I will accept, as he says in the. So those who are intelligent will take this instruction from the Bhagavatam and so many others, that one should chant the holy name, especially Hare Krishna in this age, and one can achieve all perfection in that way. So it takes intelligence to admit that you have no idea on your own how to figure out what's best for you, and that this person and this teaching is the right way to go. You know, that's where the intelligence comes in. Once you do that, and you have this faith, you know, we'll end with this. The Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohe Sudra Danishchoy Krishna Bhakti Kole Sarva Karma Katuhoy. The definition of faith is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Real Shraddha is the unshakable conviction that just by practicing the principles of devotional service, beginning with chanting the holy name, all of my aspirations will be fulfilled, and all of my understanding and desires for perfection will be fulfilled. That kind of faith is vyavasayatmaka buddhi, is fixed intelligence. We should invent it. Okay?
Again, better than okay. Monumental answer to my question. Thank you very much.
All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Bol Vijay.
Hari Bol Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.